G'day, welcome to another episode. On this one we're going to move to the front of the van and start trying to get that squared away. As you can see, she's a bit wibbly wobbly, so I want to try and get some body mounts onto the front of the van, get that secured, centered where it needs to go. There's the other two by the door there. I want to try and get them mounted as well. But I think one of the first things I'm going to do is these pieces. This is one I chopped off a few weeks ago. This one got chopped off probably like, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, something like that. It's been kicking around. You can see, you should be able to see there is a bit of rustage that needs repairing on these. So I'll go through, repair them, and then get these two bits together, and then we'll start looking at welding them on the van. One thing I have mentioned before, should be able to, I think, see that sort of tapers that way a bit, so I'm going to see if I can actually straighten that up as well. That's obviously the other side. So yeah, we'll get that squared away, and then we'll move on to doing some mounts and trying to actually stop it wobbling all over the show. And then pretty much once I've got it not wobbly dobbling, it's going to be moving to the inside, which is the scary bit. Yeah, well that's got them welded on. Pretty good to see it back on the van after so long. I actually have a full wheel arch. Pretty nifty. Now, they are sort of shiny at the moment, but by the time I hit them with some Rain-X, that'll dull off like the rest has. Which would be good, but yeah, super good to actually have a full wheel arch again. That has not been complete for several years. Next on my hit list for the front of the van is going to be this sort of void along here. I've been humming and hawing about it, and I can't leave it. The bumper doesn't come up high enough. The two outer corners, that's pretty much flush with the top of the bumper. So I don't really need to muck around with them, extending them or anything, but I just need to get the whole front nice and level so that when the bumper's there, there's not this big void. It just looks terrible. You would have seen it in other episodes when I had the bumper sitting there. So what I have is this piece. So that's left over from the side of the van when I put the servery window in. I cut extra out of that side. So that is the last remaining piece of the outer skin of the van. And I believe I've got just enough of this to do that strip. So it won't be like all new steel like is on the side of the van, which is okay, but on the front of the van, I think just having a big new grey bit there may look a bit funny, so if I can make it look more factory by using this, I think that's a win. So basically at the moment there's a bit of a flange that's tipped around all the way along, so I'm going to hammer that around and then probably throw this in an English wheel, try and get a little bit of shape to it because the corners are a little bit rounded, they're not just flat. So yeah, we'll have a bit of a play and see what we come up with. Alright, well you see me bending that flange back over there so I can follow the shape around, get it all looking tickety-boo. One thing I did sort of think is that when I do the two front body mounts on the front there, if I weld that plate, and I'm not going to be able to actually paint this side of the body mount, so I've just brought the model back into fusion of the chassis, and same as the other ones, just drawn up very similar design. So we'll get them welded in to the chassis, and then there's a bit of a plate up in here, which I think is like the original radiator support. Actually no, it's not, because the radiator is attached to the chassis. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so there's a bit of a support there underneath the access panel to the radiator and that. So I'm going to draw something up to come down from there and then onto these, and then that'll give us another two mounts at the front, which will finally stop the old front from wobbling, because at the moment you can see she wobbles around a fair bit. so it'll be nice to actually get that secure. So we'll go through, I'll weld these in, and then we'll look at drawing up some mounts, very similar to what we've done. We'll get them welded in, and then we can start closing this big hole off. Rightio, well you can see we have 2 body mounts on there now. She's nice and solid, she's not wobbling around anymore, which is pretty awesome. Basically it's done the same sort of setup as I did on the other ones really, tried to make it all match as much as I could. Yeah, as I said before, by the time you get that on there, you're not really going to be able to get to mainly this front face of the body mount to get like a decent paint on there. So sort of sanded it back. I've got 2 coats of epoxy primer on there and then a couple of coats of the black. So later on I'll be able to get to the sides and that, but this front face not so much. This one should be alright. That's already got some epoxy on it. So the next step is, should be able to see there, so you see it's not perfectly flat, got a slight curve in it. So out of that other piece I need to put a very slight curve in that to try and match this. So obviously if I just go and make that flat, it's going to look like crap. So my English wheel, I don't have a rubber band for the top wheel. So what I'm going to try is just wrap the top wheel with tape, and hopefully that should give enough cushion for the pushing to make it only shape in that one direction, because basically the front of that bonnet piece is flat, so we'll try and just keep that going flat across there with that little bend in the middle, with that slight radius there. So we'll wrap that top wheel up and we'll see how we go shaping that up. That has actually worked. You can see it's still nice and straight that way, and we have a bit of curvage. Which seems to match the van pretty well. I mean, there's not much of a curve there, so pretty stoked that actually worked. Bit redneck, but gets the job done, doesn't it? So now basically, I've just got to cut this into strips, strip, and then we'll work out, probably join it in the middle, planish it out and put like a little bend in it, just so there's something in the middle there, and then we can put it up here, scribe it, try and get this. I've had to cut this corner a little bit where it was tucked in. Still not 100%, there's a bit of a lump there. We'll have to take a couple more cuts out of that and just get that nice and smooth before I carry on. But I think having that along there as opposed to that big hole is going to be much nicer, and you know, sort of ties in with the van, which is good, rather than just, you know, there's another grey piece. So we'll have a bit of a play around here, see how smooth we can get this, and then yeah, cut this into some strips and start tacking her on. Alrighty, well I've got that cut into strips now, and I've joined them together. Got a weld in the middle there. Looking pretty good. You can see it's got that very slight curve in there, which matches the van. But see, obviously that is going very straight across the van. So pretty much just going to go on the shrinker, and right where that weld is in the centre, just going to put a few shrinks in there and try and get it to bend to follow the same shape as that. Now, I don't know if you can really tell, but you see it's not really the sharpest to bend. So what I've done is, on my pan brake, I guess other pan brakes are the same, you can actually set the distance of the swing jaw. So I set mine to maximum so that it gave a bit more of a radius there, as opposed to just a sharp edge. It was like nothing on the van. That's not a sharp edge. This is probably a little bit sharper than that, but it's fine. So we'll go to the shrinker and we'll put a few shrinks just in here, and then we'll get that to come around, and then we can mark and trim to start attaching it to the van. But I think that's going to look pretty sweet. Should look good. Alright, well, I've given that a very quick little trim up. Sort of hammered those bits there flat. Still going to need a lot more just finessing to actually get it into position, but I'm pretty sure you will agree that looks a damn sight better. Much better. That's got to come down the middle just a little bit. Come down a bit just to even that gap up, but by the time we get the bumper up there, that'll fill in this space here, and we won't have this big hole situation going on. We will have that weld here, but by the time we hit it with the Rain-X and it goes like the soft grey colour like that just on the weld, I don't think it'll be too noticeable. Yeah, definitely glad I kept that piece of steel from the side of the van. So now it's really, I'm just going to get this to all match up a bit nicer before I start scribing and cutting. Curve there matches really good. So I think probably going to go ahead, and once I get this welded on, I think I'm just going to fit the front bumper, I reckon, just so the front's done, and also postponing the inside of the van. So yeah, we'll carry on, but yep, that's first look, just held on with some magnets. Definitely looking better. We've got that piece sitting on there at the moment just with a couple of magnets, but I reckon sort of see it's definitely going to fill the front of the van in nicely. I think it's close enough at the moment. You can see we're a pretty good fit up there, and if I push on the back, there's like a weird lumpy bit here. It's a weird lumpy bit there which I can sort of hammer out and get these two to match up. So I feel now got some spaces in there just to keep that gap nice the whole way along. So I think now I'm going to run a scribe. I was going to scribe this piece to this piece and trim this, but I think I might actually round that corner. I might actually just round that corner off a little bit just so it goes around rather than a corner. And then I'm going to cut this piece to suit this piece. These are just nicer, straighter edges to try and mark rather than the funkiness that was going on with that bit. So I think I'll radius that, and then we'll look at oh no, I won't, there's not enough room. So yeah, we'll scribe her up and then we'll do a bit of trimming. Rightio, well that's the first sort of initial cut. We're fitting really good up here. There's a little bit along here, if you can sort of see it's sort of a little bit shaky on my cut. So I'm just going to very carefully go through and just sand that back a little bit so that can come up. You see we're a little bit low here as well. I'm just going to focus. Epoxy thing, there you go, maybe. Yeah. But other than that, we're looking pretty good. Our gap along there is nice. And then same with this side, that's all coming in nice and good. We can dolly that in. We've got a little bit of a trim in the corner. And same thing down here. We've got a bit of interference here as well. So spend a little bit of time, we'll go around and just sand and just take it nice and gentle and easy until we can get that fitting where it's got to go nice. And I reckon she's going to look pretty sweet without that big hole there, especially by the time we get that bumper, which will cover all of this gap. Should look really good. So we'll carry on, get the old flappy disc out on the grinder, and we'll start sanding it and just bringing it in nice and slow. It's all welded on. As you can see, I just sort of took a fair bit of time getting it tacked up, trying to get it all lined up as good as I could. It's not looking too bad. This one's fairly reasonable. It follows the shape pretty nice. One on the other side, not so much. There's a big sort of dip here with this other weld. Obviously, way back in the day, I made this piece. This was one of my first attempts at metal shaping. Turned out pretty good. But yeah, where that weld comes in and meets, it's sort of going in. But it's a bit hard because on the other side, I've got this bar which the weld's in behind, so it's hard to get in there and actually do anything with it, which is a bit of a bugger. So, quickly stop, have a bit of a feed for dinner, and then we'll get stuck back in, grind all these welds down, and we'll see how smooth and nice we can get it. Generally aim that if it was to be painted, it's only a small skim of filler, not like caking 10mm of it in there, or half an inch or whatever. So it's generally what I sort of aim for. Being that it's a ratty van, I'm not super concerned about it being super smooth either, as pretty sure I've mentioned in the past. So yeah, have a quick feed, and then we'll grind all this down, see how she looks. Oh, there you go. It's all ground down. I've sort of hammered it out as good as I can. It's not perfect, you can see. I'm sure that's pretty showing up on camera. It's not too bad. It's livable. This side here, you can see, it sort of dips in a bit there. But yeah, without, I just can't really get there. Bit of a bummer. So I think now I'm just going to hit it with some Ranix, same stuff as on the rest of the van, and then hopefully these welds should dull off a bit, and this may get a slightly closer colour to that, maybe. So we'll do that, then we'll cut back and see how well she is grafted in. Well, it is the next afternoon. That's been sitting with the old Ranix on it. I think that's looking pretty good. You can see these welds sort of grade off much like the rest of it there. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. That sort of dulled that off a bit as well. That bit there, you can see that's a bit funky, but it's just in behind. At some point I may come back and actually try and hammer that out a bit more. We shall see. But I feel that looks much better with that filled in. By the time we get the bumper in there, you won't see that white bit anymore either. Should be good. I think we'll leave it there for this episode. Pretty good. Van's not wobbling around all over the place in the front anymore. She's nice and solid. That little hole's filled in. So I think really now the next thing to do is probably what I've been procrastinating about, and that's actually make a start on the inside of the van. Has to happen at some point, so I think now is the time. So as always, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.